U.S. President Joe Biden once again makes comments about defending Taiwan from a Chinese invasion, but some are saying his meaning is less than clear.
We're here at Computex, where the world's biggest computer companies show how they're trying to bring AI from the lab to your everyday life.
It's been 1 year since the outbreak of what many have dubbed Taiwan's MeToo movement. We take a look at what has changed in terms of sexual harassment accountability in Taiwan and what hasn't. Plus,
a win for India's incumbent Prime Minister, but maybe not the landslide that had been widely expected.
hello and welcome. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. U.S. President Joe Biden has reiterated his possible military support for Taiwan in case of a Chinese invasion. In an interview with Time magazine, Biden said he was, quote, not ruling out using U.S. military force. Reporter Reese Ayers is in Taipei following this story. Reese, what are Biden's latest comments on the subject and what do they mean for U.S.-Taiwan relations?
Well, Eric, Biden's language wasn't crystal clear. He said, quote, we are not seeking independence for Taiwan, nor will we in fact not defend Taiwan if China unilaterally tries to change the status. Now, hidden beneath that double negative there, what Biden's essentially saying is that military support for Taiwan is on the table. Then when questioned on if the U.S. could strike from allied bases in Japan or the Philippines, Joe Biden said, I can't get into that. Now, Biden's responses don't signify any change in policy regarding Taiwan, and the U.S. continues to sell Taiwan the arms that it needs to defend itself. But his comments will likely not be received well by China and may act as a kind of tacit statement of support for Taiwan.
And Reese, why does Biden stop short of saying that the U.S. will intervene to help Taiwan?
Well, the language surrounding U.S.-China-Taiwan relations is extremely sensitive. The U.S. doesn't have any official diplomatic relations with Taiwan and has been vocal in its support of maintaining the status quo across the Taiwan Strait, and also sticks to its policy of strategic ambiguity when it comes to military support. But more than his predecessors, Joe Biden has been a bit more vocal in his support for Taiwan in previous interviews, even going as far to say that the U.S. would come to Taiwan's defense if China was to attack. Now, those comments from 2022 actually prompted the White House to publicly say that they hadn't changed their policy on Taiwan, but it's safe to say that Taiwan has enjoyed a good amount of vocal and more direct support from the Biden administration.
Thanks for that, Reese. That was Reese Ayers reporting from Taipei on Biden's latest comments about Taiwan. Meanwhile, the U.S. Navy's China Maritime Studies Institute is debating whether to ramp up U.S. Coast Guard operations in Asia. But what does that mean, and how would it affect security in the seas around Taiwan? For more, our reporter Jaime Ocon spoke to Ben Lewis, the co-founder of PLA Tracker, which monitors Chinese military activity around Taiwan.
Now, this think tank is trying to recommend that the U.S. Coast Guard also operates in the Indo-Pacific and conducts freedom of navigation exercises to conduct law enforcement missions there. Is that a good idea?
I think it's a great idea. For one, it's well within our capability to do. We do joint Coast Guard activities with our allies and partners, so we can send our ships there when we need to. But I think it provides a really effective tool for us to share kind of best practices on how to deal with and learn best practices really from the Philippines and Taiwan, potentially. So when you employ a Coast Guard like China does, it's generally seen as less provocative than deploying a warship. The ships are smaller, and they're just generally less threatening. They're still dangerous when employed in an irresponsible way like China does. But, you know, when you work together, it's like with your allies, with the Coast Guard ships, it's like police training in a way for practicing search and rescue, practicing putting out fires at sea, humanitarian operations. I think it makes sense to build resiliency among our allies and partners in dealing with China in the way that China chooses to apply pressure, not having to rely solely on your military to protect against coercive gray zone activity, because that drains your resources, and that's one of the objectives that China has when it does these things.
And we've seen China spend millions of dollars into modernizing its military and its Coast Guard. And in these recent exercises, after the inauguration speech from Lai Ching-te here in Taiwan, we saw China carry out large-scale exercises using the Coast Guard in the outlying islands of Jinmen. Is that trend going to continue, the use of the Coast Guard?
I would say almost certainly. China, you're right. I mean, China has put a lot of money into the Coast Guard. They've transferred very large ships from the Navy to the Coast Guard because it does act as the tip of the spear. It is their kind of solid gray zone force. That and the maritime militia, which is always supported by the Coast Guard. So in terms of the outlying islands around Taiwan, I think that, we've seen a fairly consistent presence of the Coast Guard. Don't expect that to change. If anything, I think it'll increase. The Coast Guard was featured very prominently in Joint Sword 2024A. That was a change relative to previous exercises. The Coast Guard had a central role, not only around the outlying islands, but also east of Taiwan. I mean, I think, it's very clear that they're trying to develop a synergy between the PLAN and the Chinese Coast Guard and its other maritime law enforcement agencies. I think likely what we should recognize that if there is a blockade scenario, for example, the Chinese Coast Guard is going to be absolutely crucial in enforcing a blockade, just because it's about presence.
Now, security analyst Ben Lewis speaking to our reporter Jaime Ocon. Chip designer NVIDIA and electronics manufacturer Foxconn are teaming up to build an advanced computing center in southern Taiwan. The firm's CEOs, Jensen Huang and Young Liu, made that announcement at the Computex trade show in Taipei. The partnership aims to push AI forward, bringing it into manufacturing, electric vehicles, and robotics. Huang also highlighted Taiwan's key role in the global tech industry, revealing that NVIDIA is looking to set up shop here.
Excellent engineers, great technology, excellent work ethic, great spirit. It's a fantastic place. So I'm looking forward to expanding our site here.
AI is a buzzword in the tech world, and it's being heard everywhere at this year's Computex Taipei. As Chris Gorn reports, the buzz won't be going away anytime soon.
Artificial intelligence, or AI, is coming your way. That's been the key theme this year at one of the biggest computer expos in the world, Computex, held in Taipei. With keynote speeches from CEOs and tons of tech on display, everyone here is trying to showcase what AI can do for you. Would you like to walk through a complete digital replica of your factory in another country? AI can help with that. Or maybe you want to play a mystery video game where none of the dialogue is scripted.
I'm hoping to find Martin Davis.
And why exactly do you want to find him?
That's a good question. Why am I trying to find him?
You could just say you're trying to deliver a package.
He owes me a lot of money.
Sorry to disappoint, but we're not in the business of loan sharks here.
Whether for gaming or manufacturing, these AI tools rely on cutting-edge hardware to perform these tasks in real time.
There's no shortage of flashy new hardware here at Computex, and one product that's been played up both on the keynote stage and here on the show floor are AI PCs, like this.
AI PCs have hardware that can perform or accelerate AI functions on the device itself, rather than relying on cloud services online. Microsoft's Copilot PCs are the first to market themselves as AI PCs, so what can they do? Using AI image generation, a few basic strokes and a text prompt can produce an image of a treehouse. It can perform real-time translation on any video or phone call. And one function, known as Recall, takes screenshots of everything you do on your PC. So if you forget which document, video, website, or photo you were looking at, it can help bring it back by searching with text or images. But the technology is still in its early days.
觉得目前使用上还有点局限在，就是可能指令要下得非常正确，跟很明确，它才有办法产出我们心目中想要的东西。
I don't have any privacy concern per se, but right now I'm yet to discover how it will make my life easier.
我觉得就是 AI 的 PC 的话很方便，可是如果一直用的话，总有一天人脑会退化。
But those working in the industry say this is just the beginning.
I think it's going to be really early, and the hype might really be beyond the actual product itself. But for us, I think, where we really want to stick this out is really in the 3 to 4 year term, where we believe that on-device AI is going to be a game changer.
And he's not the only one. Market analysts are predicting that within 4 years, 70% of PCs being shipped will be AI capable. The technology is new, and the full range of applications are still in development. But one thing this year's Computex has shown is that AI is coming, whether you're ready or not. Andy Shrey and Chris Gorin for TaiwanPlus.
Traffic safety for seniors is in the spotlight after new figures revealed that more and more older people are getting hurt or killed on the road. The Transportation Ministry says almost 1,300 people aged 65 or above were killed on Taiwan's roads in 2022 and 2023. The number of people injured in traffic accidents soared from almost 65,000 to over 72,000. And that trend looks set to continue, with injuries during the first 3 months of 2024 up 3.3% year on year. Pedestrian safety advocates groups say better pedestrian infrastructure and mass transportation are needed to allow seniors to get where they need to go safely. A dramatic landslide left several people with injuries in northern Taiwan on Monday. Now, engineers are investigating how this roadside collapse happened and how to prevent them in the future.
When rocks flow like water. This dramatic landslide happened on a highway in northern Taiwan on June 3rd, resulting in just a few minor injuries and a handful of buried vehicles. Investigations have since revealed the cause of the sudden collapse.
那这一次的研判是因为地震再加上豪雨，那造成比较深层的一个崩塌。怎么样加强监控？后续我们会请公路总局做相关的方案的这个研拟。
Geologists suspect the magnitude 7.2 earthquake in Hualien on April 3rd, which caused massive deadly landslides along Taiwan's east coast, may have something to do with this most recent event.
砂岩的逆向坡不应该那样一片绿油油的啊，表示它已经高度风化了，岩石已经腐朽了，那个强度降低了，所以当然会找个机会会滑下来。
Around 2/3 of Taiwan's main island is covered by rugged mountains. Coupled with frequent earthquakes and typhoons, landslides aren't uncommon, and they sometimes sever transport links across the country. Engineers say new technologies are vital for surveying at-risk areas.
我们用无人机搭配 AI 科技，进行所谓的坡顶人工边坡滑动面的一个判识呢，辅以所谓的人工巡检。 不能单靠人工巡检。
Efforts to clear debris from the road are expected to take about a week. In the meantime, engineers will get to work reinforcing the broken slope and surveying other roadside slopes vulnerable to collapse. Dolphin Chen and Rees for TaiwanPlus.
It's been 1 year since a single Facebook post sparked a nationwide MeToo movement here in Taiwan. While the country has moved toward greater accountability, more cases continue to surface. Irene Lin looks at the progress Taiwan has made and what still needs to be done.
A major turning point. On May 31st, 2023, Chen Qianrou, a former contractor with the ruling Democratic Progressive Party, posted a public letter that quickly turned the nation upside down. In the letter, she accused a film producer hired by the party of sexual harassment on the job, and said her supervisor, the former head of the DPP Women's Department, tried to silence her. Chen says she was inspired to go public with her story after watching the hit Netflix political drama Wave Makers, which follows a character in a similar situation to her own. Since Chen's post, hundreds of people have come forward with claims of sexual misconduct, many of them involving high-profile figures in politics, entertainment, and education. Some of those survivors say they were underage when the abuse took place.
那一年的我才16岁，拍摄影片、拍摄未成年的私密影片等等，就是违法的，这是不变的。
The firestorm set off by these revelations spread across Taiwanese society. Before, survivors were often hesitant to speak up, especially when the abuser was their employer or someone in authority.
如果是因为生活上的需要这份的薪水，其实难免都会有一点点。
but more people now feel supported.
其实现在台湾的修法之后啊，其实对性别平权这块其实已经我觉得算完善的很好。然后男女之间其实不太会有现在的性别差异，不能用职权去作为性骚的一个解释啦。
其实像是公司，它也有像是我们的员工守则，或者是其他的一些包含人资他们自己在讲，也是有蛮鼓励我们，如果遇到 MeToo 这些事情的话，可以是去向公司的主管、直属主管，或者是更上层往上去通报的。
Hoping to make lasting changes, the government has amended laws on gender equality in the workplace, schools, and society.
这一次的修法的重点，就是希望以保护被害人为中心这个核心精神。
For survivors, the laws now grant them more time to make complaints, protect their anonymity, and provide clear guidelines for where to seek help. And people accused of sexual misconduct, once reported, face heavier fines and jail sentences if found guilty, and can be suspended or removed from high-ranking positions. One hallmark of the MeToo movement in Taiwan has been that many of the early high-profile cases in the past year involved male survivors of sexual misconduct speaking out. But the numbers overall show that men are still largely overlooked in the discussion. According to the Health Ministry, cases of sexual harassment against men that have been open since 2016 were at least 10 times fewer than those against women, and that's only for cases outside of workplaces and schools. Gender equality activist Chen Bo-wei says those numbers might not be even telling the full story.
其实男性受害不肯通报的黑数，可能比女性受害不肯通报的可能比例还要再更高。所谓男子气概的压力压在这些男性受害者身上之外，就是说我通报受害，而且是我去检举，我去申诉我的在职场上地位比我高的人，那我通报出去之后，会不会影响往后我在这个地方继续工作的机会？
While the laws are not limited to protecting women, activists like Chen Bo-wei say popular narratives continue to see women as the primary targets of sexual harassment, and that despite progress made in the past year, it could take much longer to counter such perceptions in Taiwan.
A year on from the beginning of Taiwan's nationwide MeToo movement, there's been an explosion of social and legislative action. It's all to protect victims of sexual violence, but making sure everyone is safe and listened to is a challenge the country will continue to face. James Lin, Klein Wang, Wesley Lewis, and Irene Lin for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, we speak with a cellular therapy expert about what new regenerative medicine laws mean for Taiwan and for patients in need of these treatments.
I want competition with China, not conflict.
The entire world has great interest in keeping Taiwan's chip industry functional.
So the silicon shield that supposedly has been protecting Taiwan.
How many years the TSMC can still maintain its competitive edge?
What do you see as the next big shift in the semiconductor industry?
Taiwan's take on global headlines. All that matters, TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. The legislature has passed 2 bills on regenerative medicine. That's a branch of medicine that includes cell and gene therapies. The move follows 9 years of lobbying to make these treatments more widely available here in Taiwan. The new laws limit these therapies to medical institutions, meaning private companies may not offer them. They also protect donors from having their cells taken forcibly and ban the use of fetal cells. Most new therapies need to go through human trials in Taiwan before official approval. But experimental cell and gene therapies will be allowed in the case of serious illness where there are no other options. To find out more about the new laws and what changes they could bring, John Van Trieste spoke to Chen Wanxing of the Taiwan Association for Cellular Therapy.
How long has there been a demand for laws governing this sort of medicine?
病人们口耳相传说
有很多的免疫细胞治疗，那他们得花钱到，比如说日本或韩国，就花个100万，然后去治疗。那口耳相传说治疗效果又很好，那为什么台湾的医疗技术这么进步，不开放呢？所以在2019、2020那左右，就从病人的团体就发起，那他们就开始在思索。
Why are laws on regenerative medicine so important? And what do these two laws bring in terms of change?
细胞治疗如果好好的做，真的它是一个对于很多 no alternative 的一些patient有一个很新的治疗的方式或者是方法，也就是在 underground 做了就是你3不5时就会听到有朋友去打干细胞，然后我们都非常 shock。那可是，在那样子的情况下，如果以昨天通过这个再生医疗这个双法的话，我们就可以真的有很 powerful 的这个一个 law 在那一边。那希望就是可以遏制这样子的现象。
Now, it's Sun Wanxing of the Taiwan Association for Cellular Therapy speaking to John Van Trieste. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's BJP has won the country's general election, securing him a 3rd straight term. But critics are concerned about what his win might mean for the country's democracy. Sally Jensen is in the capital, Delhi, bringing us the result of the world's biggest election ever.
The 73-year-old self-avowed man of the people, elected leader of the world's most populous country for a 3rd straight term. India's incumbent Prime Minister Narendra Modi has won the world's biggest elections, but not by the landslide widely expected.
दुनिया के सबसे बड़े लोकतंत्र की जीत है.
As leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party, or BJP, Modi's brand of right-wing Hindu nationalism and his cash transfer programs to low-income families have made him popular at home over the last decade. He's credited with strengthening India's international presence and has promised to further bolster manufacturing, tech and clean energy to lift India 2 spots to become the world's 3rd largest economy in the next 5 years. Modi beat INDIA, an alliance of 26 opposition parties led by Rahul Gandhi, but the result defied expectations, as the opposition made major gains, helping dampen what many had thought would be a massive BJP victory.
और देश ने नरेंद्र मोदी जी को साफ कह दिया है कि हम आपको नहीं चाहते हैं.
With a world record-breaking turnout of 642 million voters, these elections took months and several stages of voting across 543 constituencies. The BJP won 240 seats in India's lower house, the Lok Sabha, falling short of a majority needed to form a government, less than they won in 2019, 303, and even in 2014, 282. This loss of seats has come as a surprise to many, as Modi had been leading in the public opinion polls ahead of the vote. But for his opponents, Modi's Hindu-centric rule has verged on authoritarian, and they had been pushing to persuade voters not to choose him.
Democracy is in danger. The Indian Constitution, which gives equal right to every citizen to practice their own religion, people are being divided, or people are being polarized on basis of religion, caste, creed and color.
Despite rapid economic growth and massive welfare spending, poverty remains a problem among the agriculture-dependent workforce. And some of the country's Muslim minority fear social marginalization and even physical attacks from Modi's right-wing supporters. He's eased tense relations with China, but the ongoing risk of clashes at the 2 countries' shared border, which surfaced nearly 4 years ago and have led to an ongoing standoff, will test his diplomatic acumen. And now, facing a strengthened opposition, which won over a significant portion of the electorate, Modi will be under the most pressure of his entire premiership.
That also shows that there is a sense of
some kind of a fatigue or some kind of a realization from the BJP also that people are really not that happy. So when I say about the personality cult, there is also some kind of chinks in the armor in the personality cult also.
Without the strong single majority it enjoyed in 2019, the BJP will have to form a coalition with smaller parties to form a government. Set to serve another 5-year term, Modi's meagre win has been welcomed by his supporters here with fairly muted celebrations. As the face of the BJP, the surprise setback is a reflection on him and may show that India's Modi fever is beginning to cool. John Su, Suvan Pal and Sally Jensen in New Delhi for TaiwanPlus.
Baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani's former translator has pleaded guilty to bank fraud. In April, Mizuhara Ippei was charged with stealing nearly $17 million from the LA Dodgers player to pay his own gambling debts. The U.S. federal government charged him with bank fraud and with falsifying tax returns. Combined, Mizuhara faces up to 33 years behind bars. His U.S. residency may also be affected.
Based on the conduct he has pleaded guilty to, he faces significant immigration consequences. I will not get into predictions of what will ultimately happen, but he certainly faces a risk of deportation back to Japan.
Thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. Head over to the TaiwanPlus website to get more of our reports or the other shows that we produce. Finally, take a look at this annual Rose Festival held in Bulgaria. They spend months growing roses to harvest their petals for oil to use in perfumes and cosmetics. I'm Eric Gao. Take care, and we'll see you next time.